Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this platform by individuals, callers, or invited guests are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with the brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send me a donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
All right, Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there. 1 second, let me get started here. All right, get to the comments. All right. All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone out there. Welcome to another spiritual food controversial, identifying Mystery Babylon. Before I begin, I got to give all praises to the Most High, the Holy One of Israel, the Ancient of Days, Yahweh's name in the Hebrew, which means I am, He is, or calls us to be. And we pay homage to His first begotten Son, Hamashiach Yahushai, Christ Jesus in English, which means anointed Savior, one of the salvation. And as our brother Jude puts it in his letter, for us to contend for the faith that was once delivered to the saints. I want to give shout out to my co-host Gabar, Big Sal for the platform, all the moderators on Debate Talk for You, my reader Shuri, everyone tuning in tonight. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in my reader, and we're going to get started. Okay, so I'm going to bring my reader on. Shabbat Shalom, Shuri. Mark, you there?
Khan, my bad, I was on mute. Shabbat Shalom, Barakatah, Debate Talk family. Shabbat Shalom to all my brothers and my sisters out there today, and waiting to get in for a real strong session with my brother Ahmayan. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Gabar. Shabbat Shalom, Big Sal, and all the other moderators, my brothers, my sisters. Bless you. May the Lord keep you always. Let's do it.
Khan, thank you for that, brother. So yeah, I'm gonna turn my camera off. You know, they want to see you before you go. Make sure there's somebody else behind the camera. So there, turn my camera off so we can get into this. I'm gonna be moving around a little bit. So later on after the show, I can turn the camera on. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Anyone can come on and ask any questions or refute anything that's going to be brought out. So yeah, I'll turn my camera back on later on. So with that, let's get started. We're going to first start with Revelation chapter 17. The 17th chapter of Revelation. We're going to start out there. All right. So we identifying Mystery Babylon. I know a lot of people in my community, I know at least in the past, I don't know about today, has identified Mystery Babylon with America or North America. So I want to go into the text and show that it is not North America according to the Bible. All right, so we're going to go into the book and find the identity of Mystery Babylon according to the Bible. So let's get the 17th chapter of Revelations, starting at verse 1.
Revelation 17, verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
So one of the angels that pouring out the vials of God is going to show John the judgment of the great whore. All right, speaking about Mystery Babylon. He's going to speak about Mystery Babylon. We get some information about Mystery Babylon and then get the identity of Mystery Babylon. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 2. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
So the inhabitants of the world has been made drunk with the wine of the wrath of her fornication, meaning whatever she's dealing with, whatever that is, she's dealing with that. The other nations are drunk with that, meaning they're all involved with it. They're engaged in it with her to the point where they're drunk from it. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
So he took him into a wilderness. He sees a woman, and she's on a red colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. I'm going to come back and cover all this stuff. Just want to just read it through real quick and then come back and then touch on it. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
So she has abomination, fornication. That's going on to spiritual fornication. Okay, so we have more description here of the woman. All right, go ahead.
And upon her forehead, verse 5, Salakia, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
Go ahead.
And I saw the woman drunken with blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
Go ahead.
And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay, so now we have that. So we here to deal with the identity of Mystery Babylon, basically to deal with this woman riding this scarlet colored beast. Right. I want to much get off into the beast itself, unless it's a question specifically, but I want to just deal with the woman specifically. All right, first. I want to jump down to verse 18. Get verse 18 first.
Revelation 17:18. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
So the city is, first of all, is identified as a woman. I mean, the woman is identified as a city. All right. So the first thing we have with the woman is a great city. That's the first thing we have about this woman. All right. Now I want to jump back one chapter. Let's go to the 17th chapter. It's the 16th chapter, excuse me. And I want to start at verse 17. Revelation chapter 16. Let me get verse 17 down to verse 21. So we're identifying this woman here now, okay?
Revelation 16, verse 17. And the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, It is done.
Go ahead.
And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So the mighty and earthquake, and so great.
So you hear all these voices and thunderings, and it was a great earthquake. We're going to get some more on this earthquake here. All right. Go ahead.
And the great city was divided. No, excuse me, Salakia. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of her wrath, of his wrath.
So the great city, which is this woman here, right, it was divided into 3 parts. Okay, and the cities of the nations fell. These other cities around of the Gentiles, they fell. And great Babylon, which is this woman, this great city, came into remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So judgment is now going to come to this great city, to this woman, okay, which is also great Babylon, or Babylon the Great, as it is called. So the woman is a city. We got that. It's been divided up. There's going to be a great earthquake. We're going to touch on later on with this earthquake, what caused this earthquake to even happen. Okay, we know it's a judgment from God. We're going to get some more information on it. Okay, from there, I want to get the 11th chapter of Revelations. Let me get to the 11th chapter and let me get verse 8. So we're trying to identify Mystery Babylon according to the text here. Okay. Revelations chapter 11, and you want to just get right to the point. Let me get verse 8.
Revelations chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall line the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified.
So we see clearly here the great city again, which is the woman, which it's spiritual said their dead body. These are the two prophets, right? The two witnesses are the two prophets. They're gonna die in this city, this great city, which is this woman, which spiritually or divinely or from a spiritual point of view is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So we know where our Lord was crucified. This was in Jerusalem, or right outside the city gates. All right, so we know exactly where this took place. So this is a point blank scripture to let you know that the woman running that beast, this great city, is actually Jerusalem. Okay, this verse is clear that this is Jerusalem. Now, I want to get some more verses that talks about where he calls Jerusalem Sodom, and Egypt, speaking of spiritual fornication with all the different idols that was being worshipped in Egypt and all the homosexuality that was going on in Sodom. So divinely or from a spiritual standpoint, this is what Jerusalem is going to be in the future, in our future. And even at present, these things are present there as well. Homosexuality and different things and worshiping idols is happening in Jerusalem even now in our time. And it's going to get worse. All right, so let me get Isaiah chapter 1. Let me get verse 1. Then we're going to jump down to verse 9 and verse 10. So we're going to Isaiah, because even in Isaiah time, Jerusalem, a particular area was being called this from even in Isaiah's time. So we're going to get Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 1 to identify the location that we're speaking of. And then we're going to jump to verse 9 and verse 10 after that.
Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, king of Judah.
So it's concerning Judah and Jerusalem now. Okay, so we see clearly where the vision is targeted. All right, so jump down to verse 9.
Verse 9. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been Sodom. We should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah.
So we see here there was a remnant left. This is going back, and we would have been like that. So we know that we the time that we're in, we left out of there, and there was homosexuality going in that place. Okay, so if there was only a remnant that didn't go that way, that the Lord had separated a small remnant. If not, the entire nation would have been like that. We see now that we're out of the land, with the majority of us out of the land. This stuff is going on there in the land. Yeah, like Sodom and like Gomorrah. Okay, go ahead. Verse 10.
Verse 10. Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our God. Your people, ye people of Gomorrah.
So we see here the Lord is definitely calling them ye rulers of Sodom. So he's clearly calling the place Sodom. Talking about Judah and Jerusalem, and give ear unto the law of our God, ye people of Gomorrah. So he's calling them that there's a remnant that didn't go that way. So even here in Isaiah, we see it's calling Jerusalem, even way back then, through the vision given to Isaiah, it was calling them Sodom and Gomorrah. So we see the Sodom reference here from Revelations that is clearly speaking of Jerusalem. All right. So we said it's a great city according to Revelations. So it cannot be America or North America, because North America is not a city. North America is a continent. So it doesn't, the context of the text clearly says that it's a city. So how does it fit America when America is not a city? Unless you can show me that North America is a city. So so North America wouldn't fit. All right, that wouldn't work. We're gonna go too slowly and show that it can be them other places. We know it's not old Babylon, the location, because we're speaking of the future here. And we're gonna see that we're gonna rule out Rome as we go through this. It is not the city of Rome. Well, we know right here, according to Revelation chapter 11, verse 8, Christ didn't die in Rome. So it can't be Rome either. That verse would eliminate Rome, because Christ didn't die in Rome. He died in Jerusalem, or right outside the city gates. All right. Now let's come on back. Let me get Isaiah chapter 1 where we was, and let me get verse 21. Isaiah chapter 1, and let me get verse 21.
Isaiah chapter 1, verse 21. How is it the faithful city became a harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness, lodged in it, but now murderers.
So here is recalling the faithful city Jerusalem is a term. It has now become a harlot, okay? Meaning a whore. This is what is spoken of this woman, which we know was a city. When we read, I want to come back and read it in Revelation chapter 17, verse 5. Now let's go through it. Revelation chapter 17, verse 5. So we see here in Isaiah, it calls it again here a harlot, or same thing as a whore. And we're going to read the same thing about this woman in Revelation chapter 17. And let's just get verse 5. We're going to come from the top again. Verse 5.
Revelations chapter 17, verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
So we see that it's a mystery, a name written, or a mysterious name, but a name that you can understand according to the Greek word, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, okay? So we see the reference here to the particular city or this woman is called a harlot or mother of harlots, okay? So we see here that the mother, the woman will be the city, and harlots will be the inhabitants. The inhabitants are the harlots, and the mother is the city, which the inhabitants live in. And it says, and upon her forehead was a name written. I'll bring my brother Gabar in 1 second. Shabbat Shalom, Gabar. I guess he's muted. Okay, he's muted. All right, he's in. All right. So I want to come now to deal with since we're here in verse 5, let's go ahead and deal with upon her forehead. Because we see clearly here, this has reference to the high priest back in the wilderness of Aaron, when he had a plate on his forehead. So let me get Exodus 28. Exodus 28, starting at verse 36 through 38. Then we're going to come back to Revelations, and we're going to start from the top and then bring it back down. But since we're here in verse 5, let's just go ahead and deal with upon her forehead was a name written. So let's get Exodus chapter 28. We can start at verse 36 down to verse 38 to deal with what's upon her forehead. That this is a harlot priest trying to mimic the worship that God gave to the children of Israel. Once we read in Exodus what was given to us through the high priesthood. So when you're there in Exodus 28, verse 36, you can go ahead and start out.
Exodus chapter 28, verse 36. And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and grave upon it, like the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord.
So he was told here to make a plate of pure gold and engrave it like an engravings of a signet, and upon this was holiness unto the Lord. Contrast to what this hearted priest have here in Revelation chapter 17. On her forehead was written a name, a mysterious name, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. So they really trying to copy what the Lord was given here to the children of Israel. But here with the Israel, it was called holiness unto the Lord. To this harlotry priest, it's the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Go ahead.
Verse 37. And thou shalt put it on a blue lace, that it may be upon the mitre, upon the forefront of the mitre, it shall be.
So it's supposed to go on the forefront. So we see here it's on the forehead. That's where the mitre is. All right. So it's going to be on the mitre, on the forefront of the mitre. That's where it's going to be this pure gold of signet that's going to be made. Go ahead.
Verse 38. And it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things, which the children of Israel shall hallow in all their holy gifts. And it shall be always upon the forehead, that they may be accepted before the Lord.
So we see here that this is what's happening here with this woman, right? Just upon her forehead has this name. It has the similar thing with the high priest had on his forehead, but this here has abominations against of the earth, meaning everything that's against God's law. Abomination goes off into with their eating and their lifestyle, right? Mother and the mother of harlots. So being a whore, okay, as it's called a whore. So from there, I want to jump. Let's come back now to. I want to come back now to verse 1. We're going to go through this slowly, real quick. Then we're going to jump on down. All right. Now, matter of fact, let me get one more before we come back here. Let me get Ezekiel chapter 16. Let me get Ezekiel the 16th chapter, just to further prove that this is this woman here is speaking of going off into it being Sodom, as we read in the 11th chapter. Ezekiel chapter 16. Let me get verse 1 and 2 first, so we can identify what we are talking about.
Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 1. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations.
So again, we identify that we're speaking of Jerusalem. All right. Now I want to jump down because we got who we're talking about and get verse 46 through 50. Ezekiel chapter 16. Let me get verse 46. We're going to read verse 46 through verse 50.
Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 46. And thine elder sister is Samaria, she and her daughters that dwell at thy left hand, and thy younger sister that dwelleth at thy right hand is Sodom and her daughters.
So we see that thy younger sister, Jerusalem younger sister is Samaria. Okay. She and her daughters that dwell at thy right hand, and thy younger sister that dwelleth at thy right hand is Sodom and her daughters. So that is Jerusalem that dwell at her right hand, at Samaria's right hand. It's Sodom. See, we see here again, Ezekiel is even calling Jerusalem way back in his time Sodom. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 47. Yet hast thou not walked after their ways, nor done after their abominations, but as if that were a very little thing, thou wast corrupted more than they in all thy ways.
So Jerusalem was even worse than Samaria and what they did. They got more corrupted, more abominable, right? That's why we're seeing here in Revelation 17th chapter, it's called the abominations of the earth, right? Go ahead.
Verse 48. As I live, saith the Lord God, Sodom, thy sister, hath not done, she nor her daughters, as thou hast done. thou and thy daughters.
Go ahead.
Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, prideful, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy.
So we see what the pride of Sodom was when it was Sodom was pride. That was the iniquity of her sister was pride. Okay, we know pride go before the fall according to the text. All right, let me get the last verse.
Verse 50. And they were haughty and committed abominations before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good.
So we see here took them away as he saw good. So that's what he did with them. All right. We're going to come on back now to Revelation chapter 17, till at verse 1. Revelation chapter 17. All right. Let's go to this real slow. So we identified this woman as Jerusalem, according to the text, and as it calls it, spiritually Sodom and Egypt. We know Egypt is representing all of the fornication, the idol worship that was going on there. And we see the same thing going to be going on as it is now, going on there in Jerusalem as well. A whole bunch of idol worship going on in Jerusalem there. All these different religions that's there. Okay. All right. Are we there?
Come.
Okay. Go ahead, Ak.
Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
So we know who the great whore is. Okay, we got that from the 16th chapter, verse 17 through 21. It says that this great whore is this great city, right? So we got that from the 16th chapter, and it says, and this woman here sitteth upon many waters. So we're gonna find out what the many waters is. Let me get verse 15. Jump down to verse 15 to find out what the many waters are.
Revelation chapter 17, verse 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
So we got what the many waters is, okay? So that's people, multitude, nations, and tongues. So this woman is ruling over many people, all right? Many people, many multitudes, many nations, many tongues. It was she's ruling over a gigantic amount of people. All right, let me come back to verse 2.
Revelation chapter 17, verse 2. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
So the kings of the earth, being the people ruling the earth at this time, has committed fornication. You know what this is speaking of? Spiritual fornication with her, because it's Jerusalem. All right, spiritual fornication, because Jerusalem has, with the inhabitants of worship, idols, false gods, statues, men, things like that has happened, and is happening there now today. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So we see here that this city, Jerusalem, is going to be promoting this spiritual fornication. It is doing that now. It's going to get even worse, where it's going to attract the majority of the world once the Antichrist, the beast, the replacement Christ, comes on the scene. To the fact where it said the inhabitants of the earth are going to be made drunk with the wine of her fornication. That's the spiritual fornication that is speaking of idolatry, idol worship. All right, go ahead.
Verse 16. And the 10 horns, wait.
Verse 3.
Come. Salakia. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
So we know what the woman is again. It's the city, and he was carried away in this spirit. Okay. having a spiritual mind frame, a spiritual mindset, so you can comprehend what he's showing them. And he sees a woman riding up on a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So we see the same language here, having 7 heads and 10 horns, in the 13th chapter, verse 1. Let me get the 13th chapter of Revelations, and let me get verse 1. We see the same language here with this having 7 heads and 10 horns. Go ahead.
Revelations chapter 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horn 10 crowns, and upon his head the names of blasphemy.
So we see the same thing here with this. So this is the beast that the woman is riding on. All right. So we know later on in the chapter that the beast turns on the woman, right? But now she's riding the beast. This is how she becomes so prominent, by riding or promoting the beast. All right, making him popular, getting his name out there. Okay. Let's come back to the 17th chapter, right? And we left off and get verse 4.
Revelations chapter 17, verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
All right. So we see she was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, decked with gold and precious stones. So we see here it's mimicking the high priest garment. All right. They're trying to mimic the high priest garment. And let me get that in Exodus. Let me get Exodus chapter 26, verse 1. They're mimicking, for the most part, the garment of the high priest, except for the color blue, because the color blue represents the law, Torah. So they're not going to have that in there, because they ain't trying to do the laws of God. They're doing a whole bunch of fornication and abomination. So they're going to have some of the similar colors, but not going to have all of them. So Exodus chapter 26, and we're going to start at verse 1 just to show you the things that was made briefly that have the same arrayed in purple and scarlet color. Okay. So when you have Exodus chapter 26, verse 1, you can go ahead and read it out. Begin Exodus chapter 26.
Exodus chapter 26, verse 1. Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet, with cherubims of cunning work shalt thou make them.
So when you read down this same fine twine, linen, blue, purple, and scarlet, all that is wrapped with all different things when you making the tabernacle, from the priest's garment to things dealing with the tabernacle and the temple as well. But here we see clearly in verse 1 that blue is mentioned. Now, when you study Revelations, there's no blue, nothing recorded about blue with this particular hearted clothing, what she is arrayed in. Blue is not mentioned, but these other things here are mentioned here in Revelations, some here in the 17th chapter, and then you have others mentioned in the 18th chapter. We're going to go get that, the 18th chapter. Next, we're going to read the whole 18th chapter. After we finish here, we're going to get the other colors here. This woman is arrayed. So we see this is a harlot priest. It's mimicking the clothing of the high priest and of the colors built into the tabernacle that God gave to the nation of Israel. And she was decked with gold and precious stone. We're going to read this stuff in the 18th chapter, that this city has pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication, of her spiritual fornication. Okay. So this is the worship of a false. This is her, the priest, worshiping, because we know a high priest worships a deity. To this woman here, arrayed in this, trying to mimic the high priest garment of Aaron that was given to us, she's going to be promoting and pushing a false god, a false deity, which is the Antichrist. And that's where he's going to make his, where he's going to plan his city. And let's get that right quick so we can show you where the Antichrist is going to go ahead and set up his city, and it's going to be in the Holy Land. Let me get Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12, verse 31. So this is the false idol, or the false man that she is going to be pushing and promoting. Daniel chapter 12. 1 second here. One second, let me grab this verse. Daniel chapter 11, Daniel chapter 11, verse 45. Daniel chapter 11, verse 45 is what I'm looking for.
Daniel's chapter 11, verse 45. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
So that's where he's going to, the Antichrist, this military is going to plant his tabernacles of his palace. So it's one big palace with different little smaller housing between the seas, two seas. That is the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea. It says in the glorious holy mountain, which we know what that is. That's going off into Mount Moriah and the mountains around, and the mountain ranges around there, in the mountains of Moriah. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So he's going to be cast into the lake of fire once the Messiah come out the sky. So we see where he's going to plant his tabernacles there, and the city, the hearted city, Jerusalem, be arrayed in these different things. As a hearted priest is going to be promoting him and worshiping this false god, and it's going to spread this worship around the world. Everyone is going to come and worship this man, as Jerusalem promotes him as the Messiah, because everyone is looking for a Messiah figure to come to put them in power. So this man is going to come, and he's going to be the Messiah in Jerusalem, this false Messiah, this replacement Christ. And most people are going to believe in him because of the miracles he's going to be doing. He can be promoted by this fake priest here, promoting himself as a hearted priest. All right, let's come back to Revelation. We did verse 5 already. Let's read verse 5 again, and we're going to continue down. You there?
God. Revelations chapter 17, verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon, the great mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth.
So we went through that, what that means. Okay, we talked about the breastplate for the high priest, the name, the mystery, Babylon, which means confusion, means great confusion, and the mother of harlots. The mother is the city, the harlots are the inhabitants, and the abominations is everything that's going against the Most High laws, statutes, and commandments. Okay, those are the abominations right there, the abominations of the earth. All right, go ahead.
Verse 6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
So we see that this woman also has the blood of the saints in her, right? Drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, those who was pushing the Messiah. All right. So we seen this. Let's get the book of Luke. Let me get the book of Luke, chapter 13, verse 31. Christ speaks of this, where the prophets, most of the prophets, if not all of them, have died in Jerusalem. So this woman was filled with their blood. So Luke chapter 13, we can start at verse 21 through 34, just to go ahead and back this up to show you is the exact same place spoken, the Messiah, because that's where the majority, if not all, of the prophets, saints of God died in Jerusalem. We know about Stephen, killed him in Jerusalem. The Messiah right outside the city, and other Old Testament, so-called Old Testament prophets that came. So if you got Luke chapter 13, verse 31, you can go ahead out.
Luke chapter 13, verse 21.
31.
Oh, 31. Gosh, it's lucky. And the same day there came a certain of the Pharisees, saying unto him, Get thee out, and depart hence, for Herod will kill thee.
Go ahead.
And he said unto them, Go ye, and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do curse today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected.
So you have certain Pharisees here was trying to warn Christ. So you have certain Pharisees there. So now not all the Pharisees was against Christ. You had some of them that was warning him against Herod. Some of them were sympathetic to him. The majority of them wanted him dead. But we see some here that warned him about Herod to get out, because Herod's gonna try to kill him. So he gonna say, go tell that fox. That goes back into the characteristic of the animal fitting Herod, how he's acting. Okay. Tell him how he cast out devils, do cures today, and the third day is going to be perfected. Go ahead.
Verse 33. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow, and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem.
So there it is. So it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem, outside of Jerusalem. So we see that the prophets that died in Jerusalem, Jerusalem is full with the blood of the prophets. All right, go ahead.
Verse 34. And O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killeth the prophets and stoneth them that are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered my children together, and hen doth gather her brood under her wings, and ye would not.
So we see here again, clearly from the Messiah, that Jerusalem is full of the blood of the prophets, the martyrs of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament, and so on and so forth. So we see again, and we also read about the two witnesses again in the 11th chapter who's going to die again. They die in Jerusalem again in the 11th chapter. So we see the blood, and that's in our future. So there's all this blood Jerusalem is full of. Okay, let's come on back to Revelations, and let's get the last verse here, verse 7. So we see here that this woman was drunken with the blood of saints and of the blood of the martyrs of Jesus Christ. We're going to read more about these saints and martyrs in the 18th chapter. We're going to do the whole 18th chapter. It's going to go over this again. All right, so let's get the last verse here, verse 7.
Verse 7. Revelation chapter 17, verse 7. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns.
Right, so we are dealing with the woman. Once you read down to verse 8 all the way down to the verse 17, it goes off into the beast and different things like that. But that's for another day, because that's a real long lesson,
man,
to deal with the beast. It ain't just right here. We're all over the place with that. So I want to continue with the woman. So far we see clearly that the woman is Jerusalem, meaning the future, the end time Jerusalem. All right, the end time Jerusalem. So let's get down to 18 chapter, starting at verse 1. We're going to deal with this whole chapter here.
Revelations chapter 18, verse 1. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory.
Go ahead.
And he carried mightily with
Cry.
a and he cried, Salakia, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
All right. So here again, the angel is saying it again that Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit, in the cage of every hateful bird. All right. A bunch of spiritual demonic forces over there. I want to get Jeremiah. Jeremiah talks about the falling of Jerusalem. There is a dual prophecy there. Jeremiah chapter 51. Let's get verse 6 to verse 9. Jeremiah chapter 51. Kind of parallel is happening here in Revelations. Speaks of Babylon. So Jeremiah chapter 51. We're going to get verse 6 down to verse 9. And you can, whenever you have it, you can go ahead and read it.
Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul, but not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense.
All right, go ahead.
Verse 7. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken her wine. Therefore the nations are mad.
So we read that again in the 17th chapter about how the nations are drunk with the wine of her fornication, right? The inhabitants of the earth in the 17th chapter, right? The same thing here, and we know that it's called here Babylon. It's called Babylon the Great. It's the same thing here with this Babylon we're reading in Jeremiah chapter 51. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed.
Okay, so suddenly she is fallen. We're going to read how suddenly how she's fallen. We continue to read down the Revelations. All right, go ahead.
Verse 9. We would have been healed. We would have been healed, Babylon, but she is not healed. For her sake, and let us go everyone into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted.
Go ahead.
For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies.
So that's going back into where God remembers her. So we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Just forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country that's supposed to flee. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. And that's where she come into remembrance of God, and she gets judged, similar to what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah, where judgment had reaching up to heaven, and God sent the angels there and took out Lot, the two daughters, and brought judgment upon that particular place. All right, so let's go back to Revelations chapter 18, verse 3.
Revelations chapter 18, verse 3. For all nations have drunk of her wine, of her wrath, of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich with the abundance of her delicacies.
Right. So the nations are waxed rich with the abundance of her delicacy, meaning her luxury. All right. This is luxury according to the Greek word strinos. Strinos is luxury. So this city right here is to make people rich. All right. There's gonna be a lot of things they can sell there in this city, and it's gonna go into that. So all this stuff is they're feeding the the fornication in this city and the idol worship and the abomination that's going on, things that have been brought into the city. All right, go ahead.
Verse 4. And I have heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
Right. So you have people, again, they have interpreted that this Babylon, this mystery Babylon is America, and the people have interpreted in the past, and that's why they had left, because of this verse right here, and had left and went back to Israel, saying this verse is telling them to flee from North America and go back into the land of Israel.
So look like it.
Not knowing that is the opposite, because it's Jerusalem is in the land telling you to flee from there. If you dare, you flee from there. They're fleeing to there. They should be fleeing from there. Because as we established, that mystery Babylon is in Israel, the land is in the city of Jerusalem. So they fleeing over there, and they should be fleeing from there, because they're going to be a lot of abominations going on over there, and fornication going on over there, as it is today. This is what's going on over there to this day. So that's some place you don't want to be, because once God bring that judgment and destroy that place, you don't want to be in that area. So he's telling them right here to flee, that you be not partakers of her sin. As we see here, we heard in just a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, they were trying to deport the brothers and sisters that was in Dimona to get them out of there, and they're now changing the rules for citizenship, that you have to now accept Judaism to become a citizen over there. Even though they was not under that particular rule, eventually they're going to have to come under that particular rule to maintain their citizenship, because everyone now going to have to come under the religion of Judaism to be a citizen of Israel, because they're changing the law. The guy was saying it, and they fighting, and we know eventually they're going to lose that battle. They're going to lose that battle eventually, because according to the text right here, everyone is going to be dealing with idolatry and fornication and abominations over there eventually. This is what the text is telling us. So if you over there, you're going to have to be a part of it, or you're going to be put to death. It's as simple as that. So the text is telling us right here for them to flee from there. So our people that's over there need to leave that place. Get away from there. All right. The text tells us that God is going to gather us from all places. It doesn't say anything for you to go back there. He says he's going to gather you out of all places. He said he's going to do it. So that means you don't have to on your own purposely say, I'm going to make a concerted effort to go back over there, because we know what's going on over there. It isn't ready for us to go over there. God got to go in and take all them Gentiles over there and clean the place up before he bring us back into that particular land. So it's not time to go back to our land yet. We waiting on the Most High to bring us back, not us ourselves. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's get verse 5.
Revelations chapter 18, verse 5. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities.
So we just read that in Jeremiah 31. The sins of mother all the way up to the sky. We see the same thing here again. All right. The same thing happened again in the 16th chapter, the 19th verse. That's why she was judged. Okay. God has remembered her, because the sins of mount all the way up to the skies, have reached all the way up unto heaven. Okay. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Reward her, even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works.
So she's going to get double. Okay. We're going to double unto her as she's rewarded us. She's going to get double. Go ahead.
In the cup which she has filled to her double.
Go ahead.
How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am now widow, and shall see no sorrow.
So we see what's going on slowly and slowly. Jerusalem is going to be going to glorify itself. We kind of see recently with the whole situation with the water went over there, how it was glorifying itself. It was attacking the Palestinian and stuff like that, and massive missile. That's them glorifying themselves. And the other side didn't really have a chance. You know what I'm saying? So that's partially them glorifying themselves. All right. And we know they're living deliciously because America is sending them all kind of money every year, sending them billions of dollars. So they're living deliciously all over the world, especially in Jerusalem. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, because she's attaching herself to the Antichrist, and shall see no sorrow. Nothing going to happen to them. This is their mind state, their mind frame over there. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her.
So we see that her plagues are going to come in one day. So we read in Jeremiah, or it's going to come fast. So we see here it's going to be in one day. In one day, destruction is going to come to that place over there. So again, that's another reason why you want to flee from there. You don't want to be in that area, because it's going to be, all it says, death and mourning going to be over there, and famine. And she shall be utterly burnt with fire. And for strong is Yahweh power, who judgeth her. So we see that, and that happens when you read in the 17th chapter, verse 16, when the Antichrist and these different kings turn upon her, and they're gonna burn her with fire, gonna destroy the place. And that's all done through the Most High, who put it in their heart to do that, said the text. But that's going off into another class dealing with the Antichrist and these different kings. But they're gonna judge her. All right, go ahead.
Verse 9. And the kings of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning.
So they're gonna lament for her because they losing wealth. All right, because that's how they got rich. That's how they got rich. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Verse 10. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
So we see that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is her judgment come. So we see in one day, in 1 hour, judgment going to come to that particular place. Again, that's another reason why you do not want to be over there in that area. Like it says there in the fourth verse, to flee out of there, get out of there. You know what I'm saying? And we identify the location of that place to be in Jerusalem. So you don't want to be in that area when this all goes down. All right, go ahead.
Verse 11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
So we see here again, so the merchants of the earth, they weeping and crying over her. It says, because for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. That was selling their stuff to this city. This city was buying their merchandise, so they losing money, a lot of money, because no one is buying their stuff, but this city was buying their merchandise. So that's why they're weeping and mourning over this city, particular city. Go ahead. Verse 12.
Verse 12. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones of pearls and of fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and thine wood and all thine wood and all manner vessels of ivory and of manner vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble.
So we see all this stuff here. These merchants was selling to this city: gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, all thine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory. All this stuff is to build this city up. That's why it's called the Golden City. All the different things are in this city, and this is where the Antichrist is going to make his palace and his build up. He's going to build up his temple, his fake temple, trying to be like what God told Israel to build, like Solomon's temple. So we see all these people are going to bring all this stuff there because this is where they can sell all their goods. All right, go ahead.
Verse 13. And cinnamon and odorous and ointments. Oh, excuse me. And cinnamon and odors and Salakia. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men.
So we see all of that here. So all this stuff is going to happen there. So we know that going on with the cinnamon and odors and ointment and what's going on, that's going off into, let me get Exodus the 30th chapter, because this goes back into what the Lord talks about. There's a certain mixture you're not supposed to be mimicking. You're going to be cut off from your people, right? So we see that there. Let's get Exodus the 30th chapter. Let me get verse 22 through 38. It speaks of this particular mixture of compound here that you're not supposed to be mimicking, and they're going to be mimicking. That's why they're going to be destroyed. You're not supposed to be doing this stuff going against God's commandments and statutes that they're not supposed to be dealing with.
Exodus chapter 30, verse 22.
Yes.
Moreover, the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take thou also unto thee principal spices, and of pure myrrh 500 shekels, and of sweet cinnamon have so much, even 250 shekels, and of sweet calamus 250 shekels.
Okay, so we see he's going over the mixture and the amount. Go ahead.
And of cassia 500 shekels, after the shekels of the sanctuary, and of the oil, and of the olive oil and hin.
Right, and of oil, olive, and hin. Right. So we see we have the oil here. This is what is mentioned here in Revelations with the odors and the oil and the wine and everything. We just read verse 13 in the 18th chapter of Revelations. We see the same thing here. We have the oils. Okay. We have the cinnamon in the 23rd verse. Go ahead.
And thou, verse 25, and thou shalt make it an oil of holy ointment, an ointment compound after the art of
apothecary.
Mm-hmm. And it shall be in a holy anointing oil.
Just so it be a holy anointing oil. All right. This was what you was reading there of ointment and oil and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Verse 26. And thou shalt anoint the tabernacle of the congregation therewith, and the ark of the testimony, and the table, and all the vessels, and the candlesticks, and his vessels, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all his vessels, and the laver and his foot. And thou shalt sanctify them, that they may be most holy. Whatsoever toucheth them shall be holy.
So we see here, this is all this stuff need to anoint all the stuff. So this was going on with the Antichrist and him building this fake temple that we're going to read about in Thessalonians, that he's going to sit in to anoint all this thing, because he's mimicking the worship of the Most High. So we got to get all this stuff down. You got to get it by all this ingredients and all this stuff. So he's got to copy what the Most High already laid out in Exodus for the tabernacle and the temple. So he's mimicking the same thing. We saw the mimicking of the harlot priest, the woman, from the forehead to the fine line, twine, linen, and all that other stuff. You see all this stuff that's going on there with the abominations and pushing this false god, this false man. We see all this stuff here going on, that they're mimicking the worship of God, but we know that they're leaving out the blue, because that represents the law. But it seems everything else they're mimicking down to a T, because as we read in Thessalonians, is he going to say that he is God? Talking about that he is God. So if you're going to claim to be God, you got to get the temple. You got to get all the worship that God was getting in the Old Testament, all of the linen and all that stuff together. But you obviously ain't not going to get the Torah, the color, the blue. We ain't gonna get that. That leads back to him. So you're gonna leave that out. But everything else, to get your worship to be like him, you're gonna mimic everything else. So we see he's mimicking everything else here. All right. Go ahead and finish up in Exodus 30.
Verse 30. And thou shalt anoint Aaron and his sons, and consecrate them, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, this shall be a holy anointing oil unto me throughout your generations.
Go ahead.
Upon man's flesh shall it not be poured. Ooh. Neither shall ye make any other like it after the composition of it. It is holy, and it shall be holy unto you.
So we're not supposed to be mimicking that. That's for the Most High. But this Antichrist and his whole regime, they don't care about that. They're going to mimic it. They're going to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not with that. Because they're trying to be like the Most High. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
33. Whosoever compoundeth any like it, or whosoever putteth any of it upon a stranger, shall even be cut off from his people.
Yeah, cut off. It's another reason why the entire play is going to be destroyed, because they're violating this particular commandment from God. They're violating it. So that's why her sin is mounted up to heaven. We seeing the thing that she's doing here, or she's violating God's commandments. All right, go ahead.
Man, brother, you know how many people out there? Wow. Verse 34. And the Lord said unto Moses, take unto thee sweet spices, stacte, and onycha, and galbanum. These sweet spices with pure frankincense, and of each shall there be a like weight.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt make it a perfume, a confection. Salakia. A confection after art of the apothecary, tempered together, pure and holy.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt beat some of it very small, and put of it before the testimony in the tabernacle of the congregation, where I will meet with thee. It shall be unto you most holy.
Go ahead.
And as for the perfume which thou shalt make, ye shall not make to yourselves according to the composition thereof. It shall be unto thee holy for the Lord.
Go ahead.
Whosoever shall make like unto that, to smell thereto, shall even be cut off from his people.
Right. So you see that again. You're not supposed to make that. You know, and there's people out here who's doing that.
Man.
They don't fear the Most High. They're going to make that composition. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them end up dead. You know, so when you come to that kind of stuff, you got to make sure what people are giving you, you know, make sure you're just keeping it frank and myrrh. Keep it simple. Don't get too crazy with it. People mixing all kind of stuff out there.
Right.
Giving it to people, getting you all jacked up.
God.
All right. So let me get Thessalonians now. 2 Thessalonians, where this guy talking about how he's the Most High. So I mean, again, if you're claiming to be God, you got to mimic God, his worship, his temple, and all that stuff. So you see here mimic on all this stuff. He's mimicking everything except for the blue. All right. So let's get 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, where this guy is going to claim to be God. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And then we can just get right to the point. Let's get verse 3.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first.
So that, see, people have interpreted as they're talking about some falling away from the truth. No, it is not a falling from the truth. Apostasia is a standing up against lies. Okay? apostasia. All right, or the Greek word is it's to stand. It's a rebellious or an opposing stand against lies. Why would you want to? Why would he fall away from the? That doesn't make any sense. How me fall away from the truth? That's nonsense. Anybody falling away from the truth? That's falling into lies and darkness. It's a rebellious stand to stand up against lies. So that's gotta happen. That's gotta happen. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna go down. That's gonna happen first. You gotta stand up against because when you do that against the Antichrist and his regime, or even now, that's when you're gonna get persecuted. When you make that stand against wickedness, you're gonna see that persecution come your way. That's gotta happen. All right, go ahead.
And that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
That man of sin, that's the Antichrist, meaning the replacement Christ. Anti means to replace, doesn't mean against. The replacement Christ be revealed. This man of hell, perdition. Go ahead.
Who opposeth and exalteth himself, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showeth himself that he is God.
So he opposed and he exalted himself above all that is called God. So men that are calling themselves gods or anything, God in the past or God in heaven, wherever, right? He opposed all that. Then he exalted himself above all that, right? Or that is even worship, whatever is worship, all of that. It says, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. So how are you going to sit in God's temple? How are you going to show yourself to be God unless you have all the particular furnitures and worship and things going on like it was done in the Bible? You have to have all of that because you're trying to be like God. You're trying to say you're God. So if you saying you're God, we're going to say, man, where's your temple at? Where's all the furniture at? Where's the table and all this other stuff at? So he has to mimic all of that to prove to people that he is God. That's how he's going to deceive people. Because even now people teach, Christianity teach that Jesus is God. Right? He's the Father. He came in the body and all that other stuff. So he's going to deceive a lot of people. But what he's missing is the temple and all the worship and all that stuff going on. He's missing all that. So we see we reading about in Revelation 18 chapter, he's going to get all that. He's going to have all that. That's how he's going to be able to deceive them and saying that he is Christ, saying that he is God sitting in God's temple. And that's how they're going to take his mark, because they're going to believe him. He's going to do a miracle. That's how they're going to believe him. The majority of people on the earth are going to believe him and take the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is information. He's going to teach them to go against God's law, statutes, and commandment. It is not some kind of mark. It is information in your head. The Bible tells you that. All right. So that's the mark of the beast. His lies and his information put in your brain, and you acting it out. You're acting out the disobedience against God's laws, statutes, and commandment. Those things mark you. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 4. Oh, no, excuse me, Salakia. Verse 5.
Right, that's all I want. We can leave it right there. Let's go on to something else. All right. We can leave it right there. Let's go back to Revelations now. Let's go on back. I covered that particular lesson, that particular chapter in another class. Anyone can go back into spiritual food and into the shows, and you can pull that class up where I go into this chapter here and deal with that more in detail. So back here in Revelation chapter 18, you're now in verse 14. Let's read verse 13 again.
God. Revelation chapter 18, verse 13. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men.
So we see here, why would he need to get beasts and sheep and all this other stuff? Because that's for sacrifice. Those are sacrificial stuff that he's getting. And horses and stuff, traveling and chariots. in these different things here. All right. And when you go into this word, into this English word here, chariots, it's talking about. Let's go off into into the Greek word reda, rheda, and that's speaking of a four-wheel vehicle. You can look this up, fact check me. This word here is reda, rheda, and it's speaking of a four-wheel vehicle, some kind of luxury. So we see even here in way back in John's time, it was speaking of a vehicle having four wheels, right in the text. This is clearly something rare future that John was revealed to him through the text. That this is happening in the future of him. So we see here, this is going into our time. Because this in our time, we have vehicles that have four wheels. That was not in John's time. All right, go ahead.
Verse 14. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and godly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all.
Go ahead.
The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing.
Right. So the merchants, meaning the sellers of these things, that we went over all this stuff in from 11 down, 11, 12, 13, which were made rich by her. So these guys, that's why they crying, because they were made rich. Now they losing a whole lot of money by her, standing afar off for her fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Go ahead.
Verse 16. And saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls.
So we see here, alas is woe, destruction. As far as I've studied it out, that great city, and it says here, was clothed with fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. So he's mimicking again the temple. This is what it is doing. Again, because he's sitting in God's temple, saying that he is God. So you got to mimic the temple now. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 17. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off.
So we see that these people are standing afar off and they're in the waters. So when it said they were standing afar off, they was on some ships. So we see clearly this will fit again because the Mediterranean Sea is right there next to Jerusalem. Right there. So you can be in the Mediterranean Sea and you can clearly look and see the city burning right there. So again, the location fits clearly again with that, according to the text. So that's where they're going to be at. We know there's a whole lot of traffic coming through there in the Mediterranean Sea, right, where you can see the city burning, right? They're standing afar off. Go ahead.
Verse 18. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto the great city?
So that's how great Jerusalem is going to get. There's not going to be another city like it. It's going to be the top city, right? Again, this was what even the apostles and Israelites in Christ's time was waiting for to happen, to put Jerusalem back on the map. The apostles asked Christ before he ascended up, will you at this time return the kingdom unto Israel, to put Jerusalem back like it was in the days of Solomon when he was at the top, where everyone came to hear Solomon's wisdom and see the riches and how things were set up in his time. That's when it was on top. So they're trying to get it back to that time again. They're all waiting for that to happen. That's the Messiah prophesied to do that. Okay, so this is what most people are waiting for, right? So he has to set up everything to deceive these people, to say that he is that person, so they can all go ahead and worship and follow him. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein We were made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reason of her coastliness,
Costly.
her costliness time. For in 1 hour is she made desolate.
So we see if you got a ship, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna be rich. You're gonna be able to ship your stuff over there and make a whole lot of money once it's starting to get set up. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 20. Oh, no.
Yes, verse 20.
Yeah, verse 20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye, holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her.
So now he's saying to rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. Now let's go back to the 6th chapter, the 9th verse, Revelations. The 6th, because remember, in the 6th chapter, they were asking for this to happen. Let's get Revelations chapter 6, and let's get verse 9. They were asking for this in this particular chapter here. So when we find out, we're going to find out who these people are under this altar now.
Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. And when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held.
So we see here souls under the altar. They were slain for the word of the Most High and for the testimony that they held. Go ahead.
And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?
See that? So they're asking for judgment here. They want judgment on those for their blood that dwell upon the earth. Go ahead.
Verse 11. And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until the fellow servants also and their brethren, that they should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled.
Should be fulfilled, right? So we see here now the altar is there are apostles and prophets who have been killed, and they asking for vengeance from God for those that are on the earth, which we know this will be in Jerusalem. That's where most of them was killed, if not all of them. All right, and they was given white robes, right? And so we see that they have to wait until the rest of the brethren was fulfilled. So we see that the 2 witnesses will be at least another instance of 2 more people have to be killed like there were in Jerusalem. And then you see that judgment came. So once the 2 witnesses were killed, that's when you begin to see they seem to be the last 2 that was killed like them. And then God started to dish out that judgment. Because once those 2 are killed and the dead body lie in the cities for 3 days, and then once they resurrect and they ascend up to heaven in a cloud, you begin to see the judgment of God starting to come down. So we see clearly here in the 18th chapter, verse 20, that now you can rejoice over her, thou heaven, because that's where they went up. They were in heaven under the altar, right? And the apostles and prophets, because God have avenged you of them. So that the vengeance came when he destroyed this mystery Babylon, the great city, which is Jerusalem. Okay, go ahead. Let's go back to the 18th chapter. The 18th chapter now.
Revelations 18, verse 19.
In verse 21.
Verse 21. Verse 21. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great milestone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all.
So it's going to be dashed down and is going to be destroyed with violence, thrown down, and it shall not be found anymore. That particular structure or city there or configuration, or even to the location, is not going to be found at that anymore. Because we see when you come to Ezekiel, the building of that temple that's there and city is bigger than the ones in the past. And it's even in a different location. Some say it's further south, towards Bethlehem, and some say some say it's further north, in Bethlehem, and further south in Shushem. So it's not even in the same location. The new millennium city, or the new millennium temple that's being built, when you read it in Ezekiel, and when you study it, in the location and even the size is bigger, right? So that's why this one is going to be destroyed, that the Antichrist building set up in, that ain't going to be found no more. There's going to be a different one in a different location, and I'm going to read what. In fact, let me read it now. Let's read it now. Why? Let me come to Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4. Here's why. Let's get it now while we're here. Let's get it now while we're here. Zechariah 14 chapter. And we'll start at verse 4. I think it's verse 4 and verse 5. Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 4. Because we see in Acts chapter 1, Christ leaves his apostles from the Mount of Olives. He leaves from the Mount of Olives. And he's going to come back and land in the same place where he left. He's going to land back on the Mount of Olives. We're going to read it right here in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4. You there, Rob? Sure, you there?
Con.
Go ahead.
Zechariah 14, verse 4. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south.
So when Christ come back, he's going to land back where he left from, the Mount of Olives. That's where he come back on. And once he land, we do the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem, right? So we see clearly where he left from. It was from before Jerusalem. He came back on the same place where he left from. And Jerusalem, Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave, split in the midst thereof, said toward the east, which is going towards Babylon, and toward the west, going towards Egypt, and toward our way, because we're in the west. It says, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, going towards Rome and Europe in that particular direction, and half of it toward the south, going off towards the Arabia or towards the Atlantic Ocean. So there's going to be a big split there. That's the reason why that particular city, when we found them, where it's going to be all split up, right? So that's why he ain't going to be found no more, that particular city where the Antichrist set up his palace. Because Christ is going to destroy that him in that place. So that ain't going to be found no more, and all that idol worship ain't going to be found no more there again, right? So, go ahead.
Verse 5. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah.
So the Israelites that are there are going to run. You know what I'm saying? So God's going to definitely make a way that they're going to be able to escape when he comes, when he destroys that place. He's going to give them an opportunity to flee up out of that place. Because remember, we were telling them earlier to get out of there. We see a lot of them, they ain't going to listen. But once he comes, we're still going to give them a chance to run away and flee from out of that place. Because there are Israelites over there today in our time. So that's how that place is not going to be found anymore. Let's come back to Revelations, the 18th chapter. And let's finish this off. Put the link in the chat. Anybody got any questions? Anybody got anything else they want to speak on? They can come on and speak about it. So let's go ahead and finish it up.
Okay.
Verse 22. So while he's coming back to Revelations, check out my brother, my co-host, Gabar, tomorrow. He's putting together his lessons. Don't forget to check my brother out tomorrow. Check out the other moderators on Debate Talk for you, putting stuff together. Got things in the works coming up. as well. So, Ak, when you're ready, you can go ahead and read it if you're there.
Con. Revelation chapter 18, verse 22. And the voice of harpers, and the musicians, and the pipers, and the trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman, or whatsoever craft he be, shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a milestone shall be heard no more at all in thee.
Go ahead.
And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorcerers were all nations deceived.
So we see the great men of the earth were the merchants, and the sorcery were all nations deceived. So we saw kind of witchcraft and stuff going on over there. That's what's actually happening over there. All right, go ahead.
Verse 24. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth.
So we see here, so in her, Jerusalem, was found the blood of prophets. We read that, right? And of saints, okay? You read all of that. And of all righteous that were slain upon the earth. So it's speaking of the people that was, the righteous that was slain in the earth, which was targeting a particular location, targeting Jerusalem, all right? Let me get another verse here. Let me get the 16th chapter, verse 5 and 6. Revelations chapter 16, verse 5 and 6. So in her was found the blood of the prophets and of saints and of all, talking about all righteous that were slain upon the earth. So that's all righteous. That's speaking of the apostles and the prophets. They are the one to consider of the righteous.
Revelations.
Go ahead, brother. Chapter. Go ahead.
Revelations chapter 16, verse 5. And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus.
Go ahead.
For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy.
Yeah, so we see that clear. That's what happened to them. So God have judged them dust, because they had shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou has also given them blood to drink. Okay, so they've been judged, meaning death, giving them death, not literally blood to drink, but death, as they have killed his holy prophets and apostles and stuff. So just as how they have murdered God's saints, prophets, and apostles, he's also put them to death as well. So we see that there. All right, so I think we've clearly, I'm gonna leave it there, put the link in the chat. See if anybody got any questions, because we've been on here coming along. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. If anybody got any questions or anything like that, we can go on ahead and you can come on or leave it in the chat. Let me put it in. The link is in the chat. All right. Anybody got any question that was brought out or got something on their mind they want to come up with or talk about, or got a question on anything, you can definitely come on and do that as well. I think we have clearly identified Jerusalem as Mystery Babylon according to the text, according to what it says. So that's where it's going to be. That's where the Antichrist is setting up his end time kingdom, his one world order, or his new world order. That's where he's going to set it up at, ultimately in Jerusalem. And we can, I'm going to do another class to set up how he does that, comes into power, his military campaigns, So how he gets all of that done. Or he conquers three other kingdoms and merge it all into one. So we're going to give it a minute here. The link is in the chat. If anybody got any questions, let me go through and see if anything is here. Right. Okay, I think Pastor Derek Clark said, question. Was it Frank and Murr? He had a question around 10:12. I couldn't see it. So he's mimicking the worship of God that was given to the nation of Israel through Moses. So that's what he was doing. Making compound that he's not supposed to make. So again, I mean, if he's saying he's God, you have to mimic God. You can't claim to be someone and people don't see the temple and the worship going on with you and stuff like that. It wouldn't make any sense. So that's why you have to mimic all that stuff if you're claiming to be him. Because that's how you prove you're him. By these things happening. Hold on, bro. Let me see. Shira, you there?
God.
I just want to make sure, yeah, because your background, I had to mute you for a minute. Your background got kind of loud for a minute. No problem. You good. I thought you wanted to say something. What happened to Gabar? I thought Gabar was going to, he just jumped off?
Yeah, he was on there first.
I thought he wanted to come on and say something. Maybe he wanted to promote his show for tomorrow morning or something. All right, get the link in the chat. I guess no one wants to come on. No one wants to refute the information. Okay, hope you was edified by what was came out. You have the understanding of who Mystery Babylon is. I guess next time I'll jump on and go through the beast she was riding and do more about the Antichrist himself. It's going on from Daniel all the way coming on through Revelations and through Thessalonians and whatnot. So we're on 140. I'm giving a couple of more minutes. We're going to end it. So see nobody else coming on. Gabar, you there? You want to come on, bro? If you're listening, Gabar, you come on and promote yourself for tomorrow, brother, real quick before I close it out. You come on and do that. Again, let me give a shout out to Big Sal for the platform. Again, tune in and stay tuned for the other moderators on Debate Talk for you. They got things they're cooking up in the back, bringing stuff forth. I'm still waiting for Elder Mike to respond. I'll text him about the different questions and things of my review. He has not responded yet. I'm still waiting for him to show us that Christ is the altar. See, this is when you get these Christians saying stuff they can't prove. What they do is that they start running. They start running and then they don't respond anymore. You know, if I'd have said that, they'd have all been all over me. If I would have said Christ was the altar and they start questioning me about, can I show that in a text? They've been all over me, all over YouTube. But now that he said it and he can't prove that Christ is the altar, he quiet. You know what I'm saying? He can't come on and say anything. You know, he's staying away from Debate Talk for you because I'm asking him to come on and prove what he's talking about and he can't prove it. You know what I'm saying? So he's saying a whole bunch of stuff, but he can't prove Christ is the altar. There's people out there even talking about how that Elder Mike beat me in the debate. I'm like, how did he beat me in the debate when he's bringing forth false information saying Christ is the altar, which he can't prove? And then he's targeting that Christ fulfilled the law just because he died. And the text doesn't even say that. Him just dying doesn't fulfill the entire law. He says, not one jot, one tittle shall pass till all be fulfilled. He has not proven that in the debate, nowhere. You know, I mean, so if your opinion is that he won, that's your opinion. You know what I'm saying? You on YouTube, you entitled your opinion. But if you ain't got text or scripture to say I lost, then that's just your opinion. I mean, you entitled your opinion. I ain't got a problem with your opinion. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, now if you got scripture, that's different. I'm gonna address your verses you claiming at Elder Mike 1. Because I mean, I didn't go hard on Elder Mike. Let's be clear. I didn't go hard on him. I didn't have to go hard on him. It was an easy win. If the temple is here and the priesthood is in effect, God won't accept animals that he prescribed for them to give to him with his temple and his, stop it, bro. That's a bunch of nonsense, man. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense, bro? And I show it to him in the future, and he denies it. So how? Anyway, so you think he won? That's your opinion. I ain't got an issue with it. But I said Elder Mike is not going to come back on because we have corrected him so many times. You can check my review. My review I did on here about Elder Mike. He has not addressed an iota of what I did. He can address it because it corrects him and these Christians out here. So you probably ain't going to see him dialogue with me because he can't address my question about proving that Christ is at the altar. Because that verse in Hebrews 13 and 10 kills him. It kills him clearly that the Christ followers had an altar for a sacrifice. He can't get around it. It's a body bag verse for him. They was killing animals after Christ. He can't get around it. He can lie about it like he did of saying Christ is the altar, which he can't prove, but he can't get around that one verse. The verse body bags the whole debate for him. He can't explain why Christ believers had an altar for sacrifice. He can't explain it. They were still killing, and I proved Paul killed animals in Acts the 21st chapter. Even if he wants to say that the Jews wanted to kill Paul so he couldn't fulfill the animal sacrifice that he was attempting to do, what about the 4 men attached to Paul? The text tells you, the text says, James tell Paul they have 4 men that has a vow. These 4 men was with Paul. They didn't arrest those 4 men. So those 4 men who were believers in Christ, because James said they had a vow, they was part of the church, those 4 men fulfilled their animal sacrifice vow. Paul couldn't because they were trying to kill him. But the 4 men fulfilled it. He can't explain these 4 men, believers in Christ, killing animals, completing a Nazirite vow. He can't explain that after Christ died. It's a body bag again for him. He can't get around it. So, of course, you're going to have to run and don't come on and, you know what I'm saying, or address the scriptures I brought out because he can't address that. It proves me right. Let me go in the chat and see because I'm about to shut it down. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what happens when you prove Christians wrong. They run and don't say nothing and act like you didn't correct them and play dumb. But the fact of the matter is, all that they've done has been recorded. On Judgment Day, it's going to be brought back to him and say, hey, right here, you were showed. And you're playing dumb. You can't deceive the Most High. All right, Tone says, what does it say? With all due respect, it's not about winning or losing. It's about edifying the people. That's all we're seeking. I'm just addressing where there's people out here saying that I lost. I never came on and said, well, I beat him. There were people, I got the feedback. Some people are saying how I lost to him. I never said I won. I started hearing I lost. So once I hear that, I started addressing like, well, prove to me how I lost. Where's your verse that show me that I lost? You can't show them where I was going around saying I won. But if people are saying you lost, now you gotta address it if they have scriptures to say you lost. But I've not seen not one yet. So now I'm gonna show forth why now I believe he lost and bring forth my evidence that he was bringing forth false information in the debate, saying Christ is the altar. That's false information. Once you're proven to bring forth false information in a debate, you lost. You're trying to mislead people. All right. Tone says, I just wanted the truth. I don't care who it comes from. I'm just addressing the information about I lost and what happened in the debate. That was basically it. So it's not a really big thing to me. It's not a really big thing to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm just here to bring the truth and defend the Most High in Christ's word. So that's really what it was. So, I mean, anybody that talks to Elder Mike, please ask him where in the Bible it says Christ is the altar. I'm waiting for that verse. It's in our debate. That's what he said. When I pulled the verse, he said, I cut myself by going to Hebrews 13 and 10. And he started reading down. And he said, Christ is the altar, which he can't address. Again, I even showed us Christians today in the Holy Land killing animals. He can't address that. Why is there Christians in the Holy Land killing animals? Okay, can't address that. Okay, right. So these Christians in the Holy Land obviously know something that Christians over here don't know, that they're killing animals. They know that God would accept it. That's why they're doing it. But there is no temple and priesthood up. That's got to be there as well, according to the text. but they understand and they're doing it. So I guess they're going to say, well, God isn't accepting what they're doing over there in the Holy Land. I mean, how would you know? You over here in North America, how would you know? You wouldn't know. You ain't there to see. You're not God. You can speak for God. You wouldn't know. You know what I'm saying? So again, the link is in the chat. Again, no one's going to come on. I'm going to shut it down. Again, listen to Brother Gabar in the morning. Hope everybody was edified and information about Mystery Babylon being identified. The link is in the chat. I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes, then I'm going to shut it down from there. Again, I want to thank my reader for coming on. Big Sal for the platform. The other moderators, check out their information they have coming on every now and then on Debate Talk for you. Again, so hopefully we'll start doing some more classes, bringing out the truth and correcting the misinformation that's being put out there by Christians. Christians think that we Hebrew Israelites are getting this thing wrong. I'll say this: Hebrew Israelite might not have it all down, but I know for a fact we have more down than Christianity do. We understand more of this Bible than you guys do. That's clear. We definitely understand more than you guys. And those is facts. If anybody wants to refute that fact, you come on LSZ. Let's test your information against what Hebrew Israelites know. I know for a fact we know more of this Bible than you guys do. Easy. We don't know it all, but we know more than y'all. That's for sure. So no one is coming on. Let me get some last words from my reader. Sure, you there, Al?
Con.
Go ahead, Al.
Well, interesting topic tonight. I definitely got to go over these, but yeah, man. Some things were brought into fruition today. I hope all who are listening receives, as well as going back to read over the information given tonight, the spiritual food given tonight. There are a few spins on the revelation portion. Very few people really expound or go into depth in the revelations for obvious reasons. There's a lot of information, man. A lot of things to reference and go and precept in here. So, but aside from that, once again, always edifying, brother. Always edifying. And yeah, wasn't a tug of war match tonight. All praises for the humbleness that came through the spirit, and for everybody that's just listening. And give praise to the Most High in Christ for allowing me to be here to read. My apologies for everybody that was listening. Man, I get thrown sometimes between Old Testament writings and New Testament writings, and the wording in there, it be trapping you up. Some of that stuff sound like tongue twister, but in either case, I enjoyed myself. All praises, and Lord willing, hope to be here next week.
All right, thank you for that, brother. I want to say shalom to Mad Judah. Say shalom to me. Again, my challenge still stands for these Christians out here. If you guys are listening, the challenge again. Let me repeat it. Can you prove your doctrine without using Paul's writings? And no one has stepped up yet. I'm waiting for when y'all stepped up yet. You can even pose a challenge to me. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, I'm gonna step up. Again, like I said, I don't need the renewed testament to prove Christ is the Messiah. I can just use basically the so-called Old Testament to prove it, because the apostles and them, they were doing it. So I can do it. So if that's your challenge to me, that's easy for me to do. Again, any Christian, can you prove your doctrine without going to Paul's writings? That's from Romans to Hebrews. Don't use from Romans to Hebrews. Can you prove your doctrine without using any writings from Romans to Hebrew? You can use from Genesis all the way to Acts, from James to Revelation. Can you prove your doctrine without using Paul's writings? It is the challenge. Because that's all you guys seem to go to 90% of the time. Like you guys understand Paul's writing when Peter said people be twisting Paul's writings. Why would you want to go there knowing that people be twisting this man's writings and thinking you're not? Why not use some writing that people ain't saying that people been twisting and prove your doctrine from there, where less people is using? That shows you that you're really studying if you can do that. But if you ain't really studying and you're limited to just Paul's writing for the most part, where people be twisting it, of course, you cannot accept the challenge because you can't do it. Because you cannot prove your doctrine outside of Paul's writings. Because you think you know what Paul is saying and you're wrong. You don't know what Paul is saying. With that, Tone 76 says, last week, I think you have misrepresented me. We were discussing the oral law being written before 70 AD. You said I was moving the goalposts. I'm not sure that's true. Anybody can go back and listen to it. Tone, you can listen to it yourself. You can. I mean, if I think you heard it, you can go back and hear it for yourself. You said if I showed you something in 70 AD, you would accept it. You can go listen to it. If I was going to come on and bring it up, I would have clipped it and played it for you. You said show you something in 70 AD, you would accept it. Then when I showed it to you, you wanted something earlier than that. These is facts. It is recorded. If I'm lying, you can go clip it. You can go clip it and say you never said it, and you can bring it next week or whenever. We can go over it. But that's what you said to show that to you, and I did show it to you, and then you didn't want to accept it. I didn't do that, bro. I didn't misrepresent you at all. That's what you said. And I think I showed it, and I gave you what you was asking for, and you didn't want to accept it. You wanted me to show you something earlier. That's mean you moving the goalposts. You wanted 70 AD, I showed you 70 AD. Now you wanted something earlier than 70 AD. That's moving the goalposts, bro. So again, if you got proof that I did that, all you gotta do is clip it or tell me where it is. Tell me what time in the video that I said something that you didn't say. Is it 1 hour in, 2 hours in, an hour and a half in? Just tell me when it is. You can, you have my number. You can text it to me. You can text it to me what clip it is. Okay, I'll clip it for you. I didn't know you was gonna, address it this week. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know you was gonna bring it back up. No problem, brother. I can go back and clip it for you when you said it and play it. You know what I'm saying? So you would have it. And I'll come back next week, Lord willing. Everything is Lord willing. You know what I'm saying? I ain't doing nothing unless God permits it. If he wants it to happen next week, it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? If he don't want it to happen, it ain't gonna happen. So if Lord willing, I'm gonna clip it and I'm gonna play it so you can hear it. I mean, even though it's choppy, man. I mean, on your phone the audio that night was kind of real. It's kind of real bad. Hopefully, I can get a clear clip of it so I can play it so you can hear it. You know what I'm saying? So again, other than that, no one else coming on. All right. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming on. Hope you was edified with the class. If anything, you can go back and anything, you can leave a comment on YouTube once it's posted up. And if I see, I can go ahead and address any questions that you might have if you don't have anything right now. So yeah, definitely Tone 76. Yeah, I'm gonna clip it for you. I'm gonna clip it for y'all. You know what I'm saying? I guess I want you all to know that, man, nothing's personal, bro. This is all about information. I don't take nothing you said to me or you know what I'm saying, or me saying something to you. None of that. Nothing is personal, bro. It's all done in the spirit of edification and the spirit of Christ. So I just want to let you know that it's not personal with me. I don't hate you. I think you don't hate me neither. You know what I'm saying? We are brothers here. So we're just doing this in spirit of edification. So I'm not trying to make you look bad and vice versa. I know you're trying to do the same thing as well. You know what I'm saying? You're just trying to get down to the truth. That's basically what you're trying to do. So I respect that. Okay, so with that, thank you for tuning in for spiritual food. Most I willing to see you guys next week. I want to go into the mystery that Paul talked about in Romans chapter 16, because Elder Mike brought it up and I asked him what the mystery was, and he didn't know what it was. So I drove into it. I think I found what the mystery Paul was talking about is gonna shock a lot of people. It's gonna correct a lot of Christian doctrine. A lot of people who think verses are saying something, you're gonna find the verse is not saying that. You're gonna probably have questions. I'm waiting for them because I got answers, but I'm gonna deal with this mystery that Paul talks about in Romans. He mentions it in Ephesians 3, and he mentions it in Colossians 1. So those 3 places I'm going to touch on, give you some background on the mystery. I've almost finished the class already, so I'm almost ready to go with it. So by next week, Friday, I'm ready to go. So most High willing, I want to deal with the mystery in Romans chapter 5, chapter 16, verse 25. The entire chapter, actually, of Ephesians 3, and I think most of the first chapter in Colossians 1. That's where he speaks of the mystery that was revealed in his time. So I think I know what it is that was revealed from the writings. So hopefully, Lord willing, that's what I want to do next week. Hopefully that's what I'm going to do next week. If the Most High allows me to, hopefully I can edify a lot of people what that mystery is and bring the correct information out on that. So with that, thank you guys again for coming on. Thanks to my reader. Again, Big Sal. Check out my brother Gabar in the morning with his class. And with that, Shabbat Shalom.